Knon 89.3 FM in Dallas and Fort Worth, the voice of the people.
Business owners, tell KNON's listeners about your business. You can put your business or event on KNON. KNON currently has space available to run announcements for you. Tell KNON's listeners about your goods, services, nightclub, concert, or event. Help keep the voice of the people on the air while putting your information on the air. KNON's been named the #1 radio station in Dallas by both the Dallas Observer and D Magazine. Put your business with Dallas's #1 station. Call now for more information at 214-828-9500, extension 227, or extension 233. For more information, go to knon.org and click on the Run Spots on KNON page. It's a great way for your business to support community radio while letting more people know about you.
Get off my lawn.
What a game! What a game!
Jim Schutze with Get Off My Lawn. Joined again this week, second time in a row, by Eric Celeste, who's the new Cityside columnist for D Magazine. His debut column will be coming out, hitting the streets next week. Eric, glad to have you back.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
D Magazine, of course, is one of the city's most distinguished publications, and I work for, amazingly, an even better publication, the Dallas Observer. I don't know how we do it, but we're awesome. Eric and I are honored and pleased to have a very distinguished guest with us today, the Honorable Angela Hunt, outgoing City Council representative from District 14. We always say it's East Dallas, but it's not really. It's more than East Dallas, isn't it?
It is. It is. It's uptown, downtown, Oaklawn,
Yeah.
Turtle Creek, Love Field.
All the important parts of Dallas.
Yeah,
but very disparate, different kinds of Dallas.
Yeah, it really is. Very diverse.
And we want to hear from you too this morning, dear listeners. Call us up, 972-647-1893. Call us here at KNON Community Radio, 972-647-1893. Look, let me just wreck the whole show and waste everything and cut to the first thing that everybody wants to know about Angela Hunt. You've been certainly, I think Eric would agree, the change agent, the most focal member of the council during your terms, including mayors. Your name is going to be remembered longer and better than certain ex-mayors we won't bother naming. But what's up next? What are you done with politics?
Well, I'm going to go back to being an attorney. I'm going to be working as a partner at Farrow, Gillespie, and Heath in downtown, doing commercial litigation again. I've loved public service, but you know, to me, it's not about finding the next title, you know, in front of my name. For it to be interesting to me, it has to be something where I can contribute something to the job, to the city, or some level of government.
You always struck me as a lawyer in some ways in the way you approached public service, mainly because you sat down in the kitchen every weekend and went through all that stuff they handed out. They hand you that great big huge binder of stuff every week, right?
Yeah,
you actually read that stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't know that any council members did that.
Mitch Rosansky.
Oh, really?
Mitch Rosansky, yeah.
Well, maybe we ought to move on to another topic. But well, is it a good thing to dig through all that stuff? Is it important to?
Yeah, it is. You know, and as time goes on, you kind of know what flags to look for and what you should be looking at in the agenda and the things to focus on. Some things get slipped through very quickly and unceremoniously.
Eric, I understand, has a big hit piece coming out on you next week. Eric, what are the worst things you're going to say here?
When we talked about this, when you were sort of thinking about when I worked on your campaign last time, and the idea,
which is great,
and the idea of, okay, this is going to be my last term, what's next? And you were sort of going over those things. Yeah. And what interested me, and we talked about this, was how beloved you are in the district, and that's, I think, almost inarguable. But that because of that, citywide, there are fewer options for you because you end up angering a lot of the people who in other districts, who especially business
folks
interests
who write checks.
Right. Yeah. And so, how do you square that? How do you say, okay, what's good for, and this is what we got to get into the piece a little bit, what's good for my district versus what's good for the city at large?
And let me toss in a little addendum to that question, because I want to know if this is true. I was told by a guy who might know what he's talking about. That's sort of that's my typical source level. People who might conceivably have some idea what they're talking about, but maybe not. That there was polling in the last mayoral race that showed that even if you jumped in late, you might have taken it.
Yeah, I have heard that as well.
Supposedly it was Rawlings's polling,
yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah. I don't know. I can sleep at night, and the way I've tried to make decisions over the last 8 years is just, what do I think is the best for the district? I listen to my constituents, and I feel like it's a little bit cleaner and a little bit more real if I don't keep one eye on the next prize, you know what I mean? And just be thinking, how will this relate to the next election, and will I get that guy's support if I vote against his business interests? It just doesn't seem clean to me to be looking at the next thing. And it's politically naive, and I know that, but it makes me feel good. It makes me sleep easily.
I was sort of struck when we talked specifically about this, that you seem to have, to me, an ignorance almost of how angry you make people outside of District 14. To me, it's sort of like it's obvious, right, that these people hate you, and you sort of said, "What? They do? I mean, I don't know that. I mean, what sort of feedback do you get? Are you in a vacuum in there in the council? What sort of goes on? Where do you understand? Do you have to read the paper to see how angry people are about you, or did they come up to you and tell you?
No, I don't know that I hang out with kind of the citizens council types or people in, far north Dallas who may have a real disliking for me, or anybody else in the city who just, doesn't dislike me. We're not bowling buddies, and so I don't.
The fact that you think they bowl already says you don't hang out with them, right?
A slightly tone deaf.
But how does the city divide up? I had this conversation at dinner last night with friends who are Park Cities people, and they were trying to ask me who was a Democrat and who was a Republican, and I believe there was even a question about who won in the Democratic primary for city council, and I explained it's nonpartisan. You don't run as Democrats and Republicans, but I was trying to talk about you and your successor, Philip Kingston, and Lower Greenville. And I was saying, and Eric, tell me if this is nuts, I think there's a thing in the city that I think of as just sort of civic mindedness, and it's probably sort of conservative in some ways. It can be a ginner when you talk about certain kinds of spending projects, but it can be it can be almost it can be Sandy Grayson environmental if you're talking about doing things that bolster values in a residential area, and that's a theme that I think it isn't just East Dallas by any means. I mean, there's a ton of it in North Dallas. How come they voted for Laura?
Yeah,
isn't there a civic mindedness that you could put together
I think that's probably a fool me once type thing, though. I don't think you can slip under the tent again. But to answer your question too, Eric, I get that there are folks out there who just can't stand me for whatever reason. What may bother him is I don't care.
Right.
You know what I mean? I mean, it doesn't keep me awake at night, because at the end of the day, I represent District 14. They seem to have been happy with the service I provided, and the other folks, I may not share their values or their vision for the city, and that's okay.
Well, and to get to both of those points, I mean, we've talked about this last time, Jim. There is sort of a combination to me with the young people coming up. There is a much more folks who are 20 years younger than I am seem to be much more politically active and interested in their communities than I was.
Yeah.
And that maybe they listen to less aha than I did, but there's that social awareness, that sort of what I guess could be construed as liberal social agenda, but also that I talk about this in the column. The funny thing to me is Angela was what a lot of conservative North Dallas types say they want in governance.
Yeah.
They want somebody who makes the people accountable, make sure we're spending dollars correctly, and that sort of runs through. It's not traditional Democratic Republican lines.
Yeah, and that's been the best thing about the council, is that it's nonpartisan. And Mitchell Rosansky is a great example of this. He and I saw eye to eye on so many civic things. I guarantee you, if we talked about anything partisan, we'd be just screaming at each other at the top of our lungs. But on city stuff, he was a fiscal conservative. He read the budget the same way I did and was really careful with pennies. And he believed in transparency, like you're talking about. That's the greatest thing. And the other thing that I like about nonpartisanship is that, with parties, you can kind of rely on them to think for you. But at the city council level, you really have to read the stuff yourself and make a decision yourself. You can't just say, how should I think on this? How should I vote? What
is the thing about money? How come some people go to the council, and I can never predict who it's going to be, and they, whatever they do, they seem to believe, and you seem to believe, that you have to balance the checkbook. You got to count the money. And then there's this other mentality that, don't worry your little heads about that.
Can't you just wrap whatever you want to say in the words vision, and and then people go, well, that's a big vision project.
Right.
The rules don't apply.
I think that's absolutely right. And here's my other theory on that. I think if you ever watch the council at the end of the budget process in August, September, you will see us fight over literally $250,000.
Yeah.
Which is like 0.1% of the whole budget. You will see us fight tooth and nail and get personal and battle it out, and yet we will give $10 million away and we'll smile doing it, and we'll all cheer, and the person who says that's a bad idea is a naysayer. They're the anti. And my theory on that is if it's an amount of money you can wrap your head around, if it's the size of your mortgage, or you can kind of see that in your personal life. Then that's an amount of money you can fight over. But when it becomes $10 million or $4 million or $50 million, that's play money. That's monopoly money. That is not real.
Free money.
And you can't put it into your own life and see it as real money.
And Eric, back to your point about what North Dallas wants or ought to want, why don't you want a naysayer? I mean, what's wrong with being the person at the table, the one person who puts a hand up and says, "Well, wait a minute, let's talk more about that money."
I have a theory, and it's maybe because I am friends with a lot of commercial developers. Weirdly, and they're bad poker players, so I end up sitting at tables with them a lot. But they think about things differently, and I think that mentality sort of gets into the business community, and and they try to apply it to civics instead of to real estate, which is big projects. Sometimes they go bust, but they're going to cost a lot of money. You prospect, and you do enough of them so that but cities don't work that way. But I think a lot of my theory is a lot of people talk to those commercial developers and think, that's how a city grows, not at an organic, tiny neighborhood level, but big project level.
Right.
And they start to think, that's my job, is to facilitate those things and cut enough of things from other people's district that don't mean a lot, so that I can say at the end of the day I balanced the budget.
Yeah.
Now, Angela, you have not terrible ties with some major real estate developers, do you not? I mean, you have friends in that.
Yeah. You know, District 14 has more zoning cases than anyone in the city, and so I get to work a lot with those folks, and you know, I have a good relationship with them when I'm having to vote on their issues.
Yeah,
I have a wonderful
yeah.
relationship with them.
Yeah. Lucy Crow Billingsley is not-
Yeah, I really like Lucy very much.
Yeah. Now, how many people know that? Angela Hunt and Lucy Crow Billingsley.
She's my treasurer.
Yeah.
Actually, on my campaign.
Sitting in a tree. We'll be back after this break. Jim Schutze, Eric Celeste here with Angela Hunt. See you in a minute.
Business owners, tell KNON's listeners about your business. You can put your business or event on KNON. KNON currently has space available to run announcements for you. Tell KNON's listeners about your goods, services, nightclub, concert, or event. Help keep the voice of the people on the air while putting your information on the air. Put your business with Dallas's #1 station. Call now for more information at 214-828-9500, extension 227, or extension 233. For more information, go to knon.org and click on the Run Spots on KNON page. It's a great way for your business to support community radio while letting more people know about you.
When they're gone for good. This is Scott from KNON's Texas Blues Radio telling you don't miss out on some great blues. KNON's Texas Blues Radio Volume 5 Blues CD. It's a CD put together by real blues fans for real blues fans like you. Texas Blues Radio Volume 5 features great local blues from Michael J. and the Paul Bird Band, JJ and the Detonators, the Chris Watson Band, the Two Tones, Rough Cut Blues Band, Jeff Stone with Charlie Love, Dave Millsap, Sirloin and the Ass Kicking Machine, Tutu Jones, Blues Boy Bo, Buddy Whittington, Andrea Dawson, Kirkland James, Sonny Colley, and Johnny Red and the Roosters. Get a copy now at Forever Young Records in Grand Prairie, Recordtown in Fort Worth, and in Dallas at Bill's Records. This is a Dallas Blues collector's item. A very limited amount of vinyl copies can be found at Forever Young Records, the sponsor of this great blues project. CD downloads are available at cdbaby.com. Whether you get it as a download, on vinyl, or on CD, all the proceeds will benefit KNON. For more info on Texas Blues Radio Volume 5, visit knon.org.
Get off my lawn.
Jim Schutze, Eric Celeste, back with Get Off My Lawn. Our guest, the Honorable Angela Hunt. We still call you honorable, right? You're honorable forever once you've been an elected official.
Yes, I was always called that, even before.
Even
in college.
Yeah.
In college, that was my nickname.
Yeah. It would be terrible to have it changed to dishonorable
Yeah,
or something.
that
So
would.
every time you were introduced, that'd be...
Can I ask you guys a question?
Yeah.
What do you think? What's your perspective on this new city council? What do you think of it?
Jim?
Oh, man. I have no idea. I got to wait and watch.
What will you look for? What kind of key indicators will you look for in the next few months to see what you think?
Well, I'll look for a synergy between Kingston, Griggs, Grayson, Medrano, and who knows? There may be other surprises. But the thing that was so interesting about this last council was the difference between Angela Hunt alone, your first term, against all of it, and then later when you had allies. It just seemed to make a huge difference. It made a huge difference in the amount of information.
The first 6 years versus the last 2 years have been like night and day for me. Having people I trust and believe in, and I share their values, and we agree on so many things with Scott and Sandy has been unbelievable from a personal standpoint. But it's also, I think, been more difficult to kind of shove me, my opinions aside and say, she's the crazy one, when you have two other folks who share very similar perspectives.
That was going to be my point. I mean, from the narrative that you would get from the media, the daily media, the morning news, and the TV stations, it was a lot easier to just sort of paint that you as that lone wolf / nut job who's a naysayer. Yeah. And if that wasn't done overtly, it was done sort of the way it was presented to me, at least. And they can't do that.
When there's more than one.
When there's more than one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it was very overt, and I think it's part of a pattern. I remember walking through the halls with Laura Miller when she was first on the council. Laura is a person who has a pretty well-defended ego, to say the least. And we were walking down the hall, and people passed, staring at their shoes, and she whispered to me, "They all hate me." And I thought, yeah, I think that's what it looks like. I've always thought that was, I don't know if it's a deliberate strategy, but it's a kind of shunning, is it not? That is done here with the dissenter, if it's a lone dissenter.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right, and I think on a bureaucratic level, the way they do it is not so much as blatantly as the elected officials might do it, but they do it in this really intriguing way, which is just keeping your project from moving forward. And you see that in this Trinity Trails that Scott and I've worked so hard for, that I think is transformative. And talk about, that costs money. That's $6.4 million. That's not nothing, but it is a lot less than the big vision. But you see this bureaucratic, yes, we're working on it, and then suddenly, no, we're not going to.
And the way that came about, right, it was not, even though it was a collaborative idea, you did not get together and then go to Mary Soon, the city manager, and said, "We'd like to do this." My understanding is she came to each council person and said, "You each got this amount of money to spend in your district. We've got it extra. Figure out what you want to do with it, and come to me." So you said, "Great,
exactly."
And then you huddle, get the mayor involved. Come up with an idea that's mostly not in your district.
None of it's in my district. None of it's in Scott's district. When we got this money, when we got the call, I called Scott and said, "Hey, we just found the money for us to do the trails that we've been talking about for a year now." Because a year before, we'd met down there in the Trinity floodway, walked a few miles, and said, "Wouldn't this be amazing?"
And these are not just some fun trails. These, tell me if I'm wrong, this is the linkage that connects north to south.
Yes.
This is what does
right.
What Ron Kirk said the whole thing was for in 1998.
Connectivity, connecting north and south. That's exactly right, because it'll take you from the Sylvan Bridge, which is the Trinity Strand Trail, which will take you up to the Katy Trail. It'll take you 4.5 miles down to the Santa Fe Trestle Trail, which will take you up to the Santa Fe Trail, take you to White Rock Lake.
Mary Sooner herself told me she bicycled what's the southern end called that goes around Lemon Lake and goes to the Audubon.
The Trinity Audubon trails.
She biked it, and she said it was just exalting. That it was an incredible experience.
Yeah.
So if you got to do the connecting trails, you'd have a bunch of people bicycling down there to go through the wilderness and forest area. And spiritually, psychologically, what is that for Dallas, to have a bunch of...
We went to Austin a few months ago, and we took our bikes with us. We took the trailer. We had our 1-year-old and 3-year-old back there with us, and we rode around different parts of Austin. Really amazing. And we came back, and we're just kind of banging the table saying, "Why can't we do this in Dallas? We need to get these trails built." We went down to those Audubon trails. Everyone in Dallas needs to do that. It's incredibly beautiful. It's cool because there's a lot of canopy, and it's this beautiful 16-foot wide concrete trail, and it's just gorgeous. But it's not connected to anything.
Right.
And when we connect that up, if we start connecting our trails, I believe we will have the best trail system in the country. And that's really, I know we talk about being world class a lot. I really do think we'll have the coolest trail system anywhere.
And Eric, let me clear up one point about the mayor's involvement. I thought the mayor kind of jumped in Did you go ask him in?
Yeah.
Oh, you asked him.
We called him and just said, look, Scott and I are putting all of our chips in on this. Will you support this? Because
you needed a little more money.
We needed
to
a
make
little,
it.
yeah. We needed a $500,000 more.
Right.
And to his credit, he jumped in right away because he, at the time when we talked to him, he really wanted to move quickly on getting something done down there to show that there's movement on the Trinity project, and he loved this idea of doing something.
So I don't know how the process works. On something like this that's your discretionary money, was there ever a council vote that said, yes, this is...
Yes.
So there's a council... So
right.
It's your money, it's Griggs's money, you're spending it outside your district.
The mayor's supporting it.
The mayor's supporting it, the council votes for it. Now, could you explain to readers what's going on with our listeners? What's going on now?
It's absolutely incredible to me. So we voted on this a little less than a year ago and put this on the ballot for people to vote on in last November. And so we had a bond package last year. The voters approved it. So now what's going on is a few months ago, I'm hearing rumors that Mary doesn't want to put the trail where Scott and I had had proposed to put it, which was in which
Mary Soom,
our city manager,
who works for you,
who works for the city council, and she said, yes, we had pronounced at the press conference, and we had agreed, and we told the council, and we'd said to God and everybody, we're going to build trails that are also maintenance roads, because that way the Corps will approve it and allow us to build this ahead of this somewhere in the future approval process for the entire Trinity project, which is called the Record of Decision.
Yeah.
We didn't want to wait for the Record of Decision. We just said we want to get something down there now. We want to jumpstart things, so let's do these jumpstart trails. And suddenly they've realized that if you have maintenance roads, you will have maintenance vehicles on the maintenance roads, and they will be going 70 miles an hour, barreling down there to, the little kids on their tricycles, and they will just bowl them over because, you can't.
When in reality,
what else could you do besides just run them over?
On Front Burner, I said they must have painted it like Maximum Overdrive, with just trucks just coming after you, and there's no escape.
Thank you for making me click that link and watch that.
And in reality, maybe twice or three times a month, you've got a pickup truck.
Look, if you don't ride a bike and you don't ever go down there, I can see how you might have this visual of this constant, maintenance trucks. But that's not the way it is. And we ride our bikes down there, and there is a part of the trail that we work towards built down there, and there just aren't trucks down there with any significant repetition. So it's just kind of what they want to do, or what they've talked about, what they've proposed to do instead is this lovely circuitous trail that will have little bridges and that will be closer to the river. But the key to that trail is it has to wait until this Record of Decision comes out on the entire Trinity project. Now, I'll tell you, ever since I've been on the council, that Record of Decision is a year out. Right. And yet again, it's always a year out, and it's still a year out.
And is there something about your trail that would preclude the other trail?
No, you could do both, but the idea is there's not funding to do both, so why don't we just take the money that from Scott and Angela's trail and put it over here on these other trails that they would prefer.
Now here's what confuses me, maybe you can explain this to listeners. You're the elected officials. You had all these options in front of you, and you in your wisdom said, well, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do these straight trails. And so that's sort of asked and answered, as they say in court. You've made the decision. So who is the city manager to say no?
Yeah, that's been my question, and maybe you can have Mary on and ask her those questions as well. But to be really fair, Scott and I requested that Jill Jordan take us down there a few days after the briefing where they informed us that they didn't plan on doing our trail. And so Scott and I said, take us down there and show us all this danger zone. And so she did, and we got in a van and rode down there. And within the span of those 2 days, Jill and her team had come up with solutions to every safety concern that they had presented to the council. And we said, we wish you had presented these safety solutions 2 days ago to the council instead of presenting us with this hellfire and brimstone. We're going to kill little kids. Everyone's going to die. It's going to be mockery of safety.
So it can be done now?
It can be done, and thanks to Jill Jordan, who's an assistant city manager, one of the 5 people who report directly to Mary Soom, she and her team said, let's walk through each and every issue. And there is an issue with the construction of the I-30, I-35 bridges, reconstruction of those. So there are issues that have to be worked out, but nothing's insurmountable. And what I found at the city is if staff really want something, if they want a convention center hotel in 18 months, they will build a convention center hotel in 18 months. It will happen.
And we talked about this last time, Jim. The idea that there needs to be some entity in city government that can make things happen like that, right? In this case, maybe it's city staff, and so you've got part of your job is to convince city staff, and that's probably a weird process, right?
Yeah.
In some cities with a strong mayor, it's the mayor. The mayor decides that, and I've come out and said that it would be really great if Dallas could have a strong mayor system. I think Jim has at least weighed in on this before. What's your take?
I honestly think in many ways it's just a moot question because it's not going to happen due to the racial concerns in the southern sector and among African Americans who see that as just the absolute taking away of 14-1, which was supposed to bring them a seat at the table, and that a strong mayor would take all of that away, erase all of that. So it's moot. I don't think it's going to happen for the next 20 years, no matter who proposes it or who's behind it. I think there's some positives to it. If you get the right person and a good mayor and someone who has the right vision for the city, if you get someone who's crummy, you're right back to square one, and there's corruption, and it's. But I do think there could be a lot of positives in that you would get the buck would stop somewhere. It would stop with someone who's elected and directly accountable to the residents of Dallas.
Well, where does the buck stop? I don't forget about where the buck stops. Where does the buck come from now? Who has the real ultimate leverage over the city manager and the staff in this city? The mayor has an extraordinary amount of control over the city manager. At least he has over Mary Soom. And we complain, I complain a lot about Mary and kind of the direction that things have gone in some ways. But at the end of the day, she really is fulfilling the will of the majority of the council. Is she?
Yeah. I mean, but at the same time, I think she's also leading them and guiding them along that route. But yeah, I think it's the kind of the Citizens Council, big vision. Let's do these huge dramatic projects. When you do these little organic kind of projects, you create remarkable economic growth and development. Lower Greenville, which I want to say Jill Jordan was instrumental in that and did an amazing job on it. But those types of smaller projects can have an incredible impact, and when you multiply that across the city, especially in the southern sector, I think you can have a remarkable impact.
Well, we're coming up on our last break and ultimate segment, and when we come back, you won't be able to see this because it's radio, but I'm going to put on my tinfoil hat here, which is very elaborate. I've worked on it for years, and it can pick up signals from...
I have seen your tinfoil hat. It is amazing.
Yeah. And I want to hear Eric's thoughts about this, of course, too. My suspicion has always been that there's some rubber meets the road moment on stuff where interests far outside City Hall, the old guard, the Citizens Council, where those people have an extraordinary influence over the city manager if they want to.
I think that's very true.
Okay, all right. I'll just put on my tinfoil cap then instead of the full hat. We'll be back in a minute. Jim Schutze, Eric Celeste, get off my lawn. Bye.
to get rid of your old gas guzzler, the KNON Vehicle Donation Program can help. There's still a market for those old vehicles, and if you donate it, you're helping to support quality programming here on KNON. Just call 877-KNON-AUTO or go online to KNON.org. We'll take care of everything from pickup to tax paperwork. That's 877-KNON-AUTO or online at KNON.org.
It's a KNON Crawfish Party. This is Jim Bro of Monday's Cajun Zydeco Music Party Show, inviting you to come out and join us for some great music and great crawfish this Sunday at Poor David's Pub. I will be your host, and we'll have the best in Zydeco music from JB and the Zydeco Posse. We'll have mangoes boiling up some massive bugs. These are live jumbo, perch, fresh crawfish coming at you spicy or radioactive with corn and potatoes. Advance tickets are only $5 at knon.org, and crawfish is only $6 per pound, all proceeds benefiting KNON.
This is JB, and yeah, you're right. It's Sunday, June the 23rd at Port Davis Pub, located at 1313 South Lamar in Dallas. Doors are open at 5, and Jim Bro will be in the mix with Cajun and Zydeco music until me and the Zydeco Posse hit the stage.
So come on down to the KNON Crawfish Boil this Sunday with JB and the Zydeco Posse and live crawfish from Mangoes at Poor David's Pub. This is a KNON benefit event. See you, Shaq.
This is William, your videographer for the KNON talk shows. You can watch Get Off My Lawn by going to the KNON.org website. Click on schedules to the left side of your screen. Choose Get Off My Lawn's page. Scroll to the bottom of that page, then choose your favorite show to watch or download. This show will be ready for viewing by lunchtime Tuesday. Have a great day.
Hey, babes, I'll take one now.
Get off my lawn.
Get Off My Lawn. Back with you for our final segment. We have outgoing District 14 Council Member Angela Hunt here. Eric, Celeste, and I have been subjecting her to a brutal grueling, and we hope you'll stick with us for the grand finale. We got Tony on line one. Tony, are you still there?
Yes.
Tony, what's up this morning?
Well, I wanted to point out this. I think part of the issue with the city of Dallas is demographics. This is what my observation tells me. Whites who moved out to the suburbs are empty nesters are moving back into Dallas.
Right.
And because transportation is a key thing in other parts of the country, you have a dart that says, okay, because at one time they didn't want it.
Right.
Now it seems as though you used to talk about Greenville Avenue, the Bishop Arts. Yeah, organically they've been built, but at the same time, if it wasn't for some of the people in the gay community who wasn't afraid to move to certain areas, who built those places up.
Yeah.
And then the regular people start coming in. Oh, it's nice. Cedar Springs is the same way.
Right.
And what I've noticed is that the Citizen Council has built up Dallas to where, okay, let's get back into Dallas, because we know the demographics is showing that poor people are moving to the suburbs now, and blacks and Hispanics are kind of moving that direction. And so they saying, let's go get the school district back, because, you know, that's one of the things that bring businesses here. And so you see the Citizen Council moving their hand in all of Dallas. And
right.
granted, Angela has done her part, but she's only one person. And the reality is this. The same development you have on Greenville Avenue, you can do in Oak Cliff, and you can do in South Dallas. But those developers are not going there yet until they buy the land, little by little, and then all of a sudden, it springs up. And to the city actually deals with equity as far as, okay, get some of these North Dallas developers to say, here, we have the assets here, we have the education here as far as the minority community. What you can still have is North Dallas controlling everything, no matter when it comes to DART, to school, and at the end of the day, you know, as like I say, one person. And I'll leave you with that.
And Tony, I agree with you. There are strange things going on in the city that I don't get. You've got the area around the UNT campus that would seem to be a candidate for a lot of infrastructure and so on that would enable development. Some of it stalled. It stalled in weird ways, where they do stuff like tear up Houston School Road. There was a chance to put water and sewer in there while the road was torn up, and they didn't. And I know there's great suspicion that there's an agenda here to get control of this land before it's redeveloped. But I'm not. I mean, you can kind of put your glasses on the other way and look at it and say that there's an amazing amount of redevelopment and regeneration going on in southern Dallas that didn't happen up until 10 years ago. I mean, there is stuff happening. I think you can't. I can't blame anybody who's watching in southern Dallas for being worried about how it's happening. But then again, you got to look at the elected leadership of southern Dallas. I mean, I don't want you to I'm not trying to goad you into, Ms. Hunt, into talking bad about, as you go out the door, former colleagues.
I am.
But what is the relationship between, let's say, Avancil Hill and the Citizens Council? Is she a strong adversary for her district, or is she more of an ally with the Citizens Council type power base?
You know, and you've written about it before, and I think you're right on target in seeing this kind of incestuous relationship, this symbiotic relationship between some of the African American leadership in southern Dallas and the Citizens Council and wealthy whites in northern Dallas. And it's strikingly clear when you see campaigns for, like, the American Airlines Center dangling this hope for jobs.
Yeah.
You know, this is going to be great for jobs. And I've asked the city to go back and actually audit that. Tell me how many jobs there are. Tell me where those people live. And they don't want to do that. You know, that would cost too much money to investigate that. And remember, during the Trinity campaign, the same thing. And we heard African American council members saying this. I remember hearing it on the radio, saying there are going to be 30,000 jobs created if we build the Trinity Toll Road, and that was such BS. There was no fact behind it, and it seems particularly mean to me when there is a high unemployment rate in the southern sector, particularly among African Americans, to kind of dangle that. The hope of a better future and jobs in front of them to get them to vote politically a certain way.
And it seems like you get those council members in South Dallas seem to have a similar vision of what they can do with some of the folks I disagree with in North Dallas, which is those big silver bullet projects are what we really need to focus on.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's no surprise that they keep disappointing. I mean, you've got this Southern Dallas golf course project that I've been pretty critical of. And it's been who is the developer who is orchestrating that entire project? It's the guy who did Victory Plaza. It's the same guy who that big failed hunk of concrete development next to the AAC.
Right.
You know, these silver bullets that people come up with, that this is going to create jobs in this sector. The Dallas through some sort of weird osmosis, you know, through the Lexi and the BMWs is somehow folks coming into play is somehow going to reinvigorate
Exactly.
instead of something like what Scott's doing, instead of something like the Jefferson Avenue redevelopment that's going on there, or you know, projects that are block by block, area by area, that have lasting impact, and those are the things that reverberate.
And Ms. Hunt, let me ask you about a thing that's coming up that's I'm really worried about, which is farmers market. Because as Eric is saying, I think there's this mentality, and I think it's cultural, that what's good is fancy schmancy. The fancier it is, the better it is, and everyone will benefit from the aura of this fanciness.
Yes.
Somehow.
The bridge is a perfect example. The aura of the Margaret Hunt Hill Bridge will.
Or Eric, your example of Victory Park is a great example. It was built on the basis of exclusivity.
Yes.
Let's shut everybody out who's not fancy. Well, so how did that work?
Right.
And so what's going to happen with farmers market? Is it going to go that way? Are we going to have another Victory Park at farmers market, or do you think there's a chance it'll be porous and welcoming? And
I'm hopeful. I think that's kind of all we can be at this point. Look, the city was doing a piss poor job of managing this market. Did not do a good job of it, and it needs to have a very different model running the show there.
Right.
So I don't know, to be really honest, I don't know that it could get worse, because it's been run into the ground. The neighborhood farmers markets, as the Observer astutely pointed out, have been run away when we were getting this real life and vitality. And I'll tell you why that happened. It was because of this fear, and I heard it among my colleagues. I represented the farmers market, and I was cheering for these neighborhood markets because we could learn from them. And I remember Tennell and Von Seal both saying, no, we have to protect the downtown farmers market. That is our baby. We have to protect it from all these farmers markets that may be competitors.
And I remember 3 years ago sitting with you don't get a more Republican person in this town than Ray Washburn, right? Who owns Highland Park Village, who is the Republican national chair. And he sat down over breakfast and laid out what he had an idea. Hey, let's take this land that's not being used over near the Cedars. Let's turn it into soccer fields for so that folks in the city of Dallas will have more soccer fields. Let's put the farmers market over here. And it was, and on a napkin he drew this out. And I just went, this is amazing. And he just said, yeah, that's I'm sure it's never going to happen because I'll run into roadblocks here and there and there and there. And he did, and it went away. So those ideas are out there. Those like really cool, big picture, yet understanding of what the fabric of a city is, ideas. But they're hard to make them happen, aren't they?
I remember going to the farmers market, and we have a huge armoire in our house, just enormous. It weighs 1 million pounds. We got it there, and this was back in 98, 2000, and I remember talking to Mary Sim about, why don't we make the farmers market more kind of once a month like Canton? And that was too tacky. The idea of doing that was too tacky. And so instead, the president, the proposal from consultants, which, God, we couldn't run a city government without the millions of consultants we have, was to do all this high-end organic stuff and this, let's get out these tacky furniture shops. We don't want them in there. And it was to make it really glitzy, when what we had going for it was kind of this, because organic, natural, fun place, junky place to go.
The farmers market in Atlanta is amazing, and it's it's run I think by Vietnamese people, and it's privately owned, and the shop is, and it's the best stuff from all over the world, and it is crazy and funky and smells weird.
And that's a great. That's why people go there.
That's why people go there.
It's an experience.
And you see all kinds of people. These types we're talking about, this sort of North Dallas Citizens Council business types, always like to talk about best practices. So if we were going to look at the city and say, where are our most successful happening places, let's do it by council district. Let's look at the most successful council districts where there's the greatest growth in value. Let's just make it bucks and action and so on. Wouldn't that be yours and Scott Griggs' district?
I think so. Yeah, and so much of that is organic, and just because of the people in the community and the businesses there who've just made things work.
Yeah. So in other words, the Citizens Council and Mary Soom would invite you and Scott Griggs in and say, please tell us what to do.
Well, I think about the American Airlines Center that you were talking about. That's so screwed up. There's no discussion with the street there and pedestrians and bicyclists. It is turned inward. I've said, let's talk to the Better Block guys. Jason Roberts and Andrew, and just bring them and have them figure it out. And no, there's no interest in that because they don't charge enough.
And right. No, that Wick Allison told me 10 years ago when I said I was going to do consulting. I told him what I was going to charge, and he said, make it 10 times that, because in Dallas, if you charge too little, they won't give you any money.
That's right.
If you charge way too much, they'll line up at your door.
That's true.
Take Jason Roberts to Toronto, put a bow tie on him, fly him back in.
I live downtown, right, at Republic Tower, and I've walked several times to the AAC to meet people for games and stuff. It's a mile exactly, right? It's a 20-minute walk.
Right.
I should be able to make that walk. There's a lot of vibrant things there, but then there's these gaps where there's parking lots or nothing, and it's, at midnight it's a little weird.
Yeah.
You certainly wouldn't do it with a family.
Right.
It's there, the bones are there. It takes somebody a lot smarter than I am to figure that out, someone like a Jason, to say, okay, here's a vision I can see, and just block by block. And you can totally transform. You can connect these areas. Look at what Clyde Warren Park did. It's a tiny little space.
It's amazing.
And yet look what it did for the connectivity there.
Absolutely.
And there are other smart people who bring their own wisdom to bear on the council. Certainly Pauline Medrano has. I'm sure you would say Sandy Grayson.
Sandy Grayson is brilliant and one of the most honest and straightforward people you will meet.
So there's a certain center of gravity there. There's a nexus that you could go to and say, because the other thing is, if you back away and look at all of this, there's a lot of great stuff happening in the city, right? In spite of all this.
We have a great city, and I think we have a bright future, and we have great, amazing things happening. Our economy's coming back. If you look at all the new buildings that are being built and renovated, the parks that we're doing, it really is a great city. I think if we took our eye off the crazy big stuff, the bridges and that stuff, and put it turned it a little bit more towards the trails and the parks and the things like that, we would be, I think, one of the best cities in the country. I really do.
Dallas was high on this list recently of cities that were popular with young people. So you picture the Dallas Observer Story Conference. There are all these young people. I think they're like 12 and 15 years old. I don't know how old they are. And then there's Grandpa Jim.
Right.
And so we discussed this. I brought it up. I said, "Why is Dallas so great with you people? What is it? What is it you like about it?" And someone said, sort of half behind her hand, "Hookups." And so there's a long silence, and then the editor said, later on, would someone please explain to Jim what hookup? But they did. Right. So there's all this action here, right? There's this electricity.
I've said it, a couple of times. When I went to Atlanta for a year, there were a lot of great things about that city. There's just a lot of great food. There's a lot of parks. There's a festival every weekend. There's a strong mayor, Kasim Reed, who gets things done, who's accountable, all that stuff. But man, I really noticed from the first day I was there that youthful energy that Dallas has that some other cities just don't. And now there was a cool hipster vibe there in Atlanta, but I'm talking about citywide, right? Like that almost that entrepreneurial spirit that runs not just with folks who are Park City's, business people, but runs down to 22-year-old kids who have an idea and get two other people together and want to start something and create something and do something. And that's a lot different, I think, Jim, I don't know about you, than it was even 10 years ago here, 15 years ago.
Yeah, no, everything seems up in that regard. The energy is up.
And lots of sex, yes, that's happening too. Right.
Yeah, that's what I hear. But no, it seems very promising, and it seems to me that you do, and on this new council, you will again have this very promising center of people.
I love it. I think it's going to be a really exciting time for Dallas to see folks like Philip Kingston and Adam Medrano and Sandy Grayson and Scott Griggs all representing very, very different areas of the city, but having these same kind of neighborhood values.
The only thing that worries me about Kingston, he doesn't seem to know which radio shows to be on.
He's made one bad choice already, hasn't he?
Yeah, I guess he'll learn after a while. But he's...
Well, after we each write a few blog posts blasting him, he'll figure out how
That's
to play
what it's
ball.
going to take, guys.
Kingston on wrong show. Again, so this is our way of telling you that the Honorable Philip Kingston will be here in a moment. On the next hour, the even better radio show that follows us. This is again Get Off My Lawn, radio's darkest hour, with Jim Schutze, Eric Celeste. And we've been talking to outgoing District 14 council member.
And just call me Honorable.
Honorable, okay. Just, in fact, we won't even call her the Honorable Angela Hunt. We're just going to call her Honorable.
I like it.
Yeah. And she will be followed in the next hour by her successor. This is kind of like Radio District 14, Radio Free District 14. So we're going to be back next week. Eric, are you going to be back?
I think I'm in town, yeah.
Oh, okay, great. Well, we'll see you next week. Get Off My Lawn. Thanks for listening.
KNON 89.3 FM in Dallas and Fort Worth, the voice of the people.
Business owners, tell KNON's listeners about your business. You can put your business or event on KNON. KNON currently has space available to run announcements for you. Tell KNON's listeners about your goods, services, nightclub, concert, or event. Help keep the voice of the people on the air while putting your information on the air. KNON's been named the #1 radio station in Dallas by both the Dallas Observer and D Magazine. Put your business with Dallas's #1 station. Call now for more information at 214-828-9500, extension 227, or extension 233. For more information, go to knon.org and click on the Run Spots on KNON page. It's a great way for your business to support community radio while letting more people know about you.